Unit 2 is all about addition of real numbers. We're going to first talk about it with the number line. Now, I don't expect you to draw number lines all the time, but by visualizing them, it might make things a little bit easier to understand. So in example 1, they're actually going to show you that. One thing to remember is when you add things together, another way to think about that is you're combining them. Sometimes that helps out because we're going to be traveling both ways on the number line. Okay, so in example 1, letter A, we're going to start at -2, but we're going to combine that with a +5. So if I'm at 2 and it says +5, so when I'm moving, I'm going to move to the right because it's positive. Whoopsie, apparently I moved off my pen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We end at 3. So -2 plus 5 gives me a +3. In letter B, I'm going to start at my positive number 2, and I'm going to combine it or add to it a -6. So 2, combine 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 jumps to the left because it's a negative, and I land on -4. So the answer is 2 plus -6 is equal to -4. Now, the rules of addition are pretty simple. If they're the same sign, you just worry about the number value. You don't have to worry about integers, and you keep that sign, right? If they are opposite signs, and I like to call this if they are different signs, we'll play on words here. If they're different signs, you find the difference. Difference means subtract. You can read that. That's pretty bad there. So let's go ahead and put some of that into action. Now they're also going to remind you of the commutative properties of addition. Commutative, that means we can change the order if we'd like to. Associative, we can change the grouping. Identity is anything that is added to a 0 stays the same. And the inverse property, if we add two opposite numbers, we're going to end up with a 0. You can pause this if you need to look at those, but we'll go ahead and put them in action. So for example 3, we have finding a sum, and we have 1.4 plus -2.6 plus 3.1. My first plan of attack is let's get same signs together. So if I do 1.4 plus 3.1, I'm going to end up with 4.5. Now I have a simple sentence of 4.5 plus -2.6. Now I just have 2, that's an ugly, I'm going to change my 6 there for you. It's going to be too hard to read. -2.6. Okay, now I have to apply my rules that I learned just before. I have different signs, so I'm going to find the difference. Find the difference between 4.5 and -2.6. So we're going to say 4.5 minus 2.6, and we would end up with a 1.9. 4.5, I got that by 4.5, finding the difference, 2.6, that means subtraction. And then we go back and we look at our integers and we look to see which one is the greater of the integers. Now don't worry about their integer signs, just look at the numbers themselves, and 4.5 is larger, so it's going to keep the sign of that. That's a positive. Doing the same thing on the next one, I have a negative number, but again, I have two positives. I always start out with my positives because this is what I've been practicing the most of. So I have 3 plus 1/2, so that's 3 1/2, plus, and then I have my -1/2. Changed my fractions there. I have different signs, so I'm going to find the difference. So 3 1/2 minus 1/2 is going to leave me with 3. All right. Let's see. using addition in real life, we're going to go back to science again, and we're going to talk about atoms. Atoms are composed of electrons, neutrons, and protons. Each electron has a charge of -1, each neutron has a charge of 0, and each proton has a charge of a +1. The total charge of an atom is a sum, so all that is giving us some background, but we want to know the sum of all the charges of the electrons. An atom is an ion if it has a positive or a negative charge. So if an atom has a charge of 0, it is not an ion. Are the following atoms ions? So in letter A, I have aluminum. Aluminum, it says, has electrons. And electrons have a, I'm going to use my colors here, a negative charge. So I'm going to, for letter A, get a letter A, I'm going to have -13. Now my next one is neutrons. Each neutron has a charge of 0. So that's pretty easy. Doesn't matter how many of those I have, that's going to equal 0. And then my protons, and I always use alliteration here, protons are positive, and this time my protons are 13. So group together my positives, I guess you could call 0, 0 is neutral actually, but 0 plus 13, and then we have a -13. So my answer there is going to be 0. A negative and a positive are opposites, so they would equal up to 0. So if it has a charge of 0, it is not an ion. Looking at letter B, we have, again, the electrons are going to be our negative, so we have -10. Neutrons are going to give us 0, and protons are 13. I have my positive and my negative. 0 doesn't change anything. So I have different signs. The difference between 13 and 10 is 3, and the 13 is the larger number, so it stays a positive. So for letter B, that atom is an ion. And actually, if you're going to write aluminum, it would be written as aluminum is Al, and then it has the power cubed plus. That's a little science tidbit there for you instead. Right? And now we'll do a little business for you, some profit. So a consulting company had the following monthly results after comparing income and expenses. Add the monthly profits and losses to find the overall profit or loss during the 6-month period. So we have 6 months there. I'm going to use my red again, and this is some business words here. When you're in the red, you're in negatives. So I'm going to identify my negatives. To be successful, you want to be in the black. The black means you're making, you're not owing any money, and you want to come out in the black. So what I would do first is, all of the red ones have the same sign. So I would go ahead and I would add January and February and March together. Now definitely use your calculator. Because they're the same sign, you can either use the negative button or you could still just add them, but remember you are in the negatives. That comes out to be, I don't think I'm going to fit it there, so I'm going to write it down here instead. 4,734 and 86 cents. Now that's in the red, that's a negative. Seeing where we end up in the blacks, I'm going to, add up my April, May, and June. I was making some profits there. When I do that, I come to the total of, let's see, I come to the total of $12,932.54. Oh, no, that's my June. Sorry about that. What was I doing there? I'm going to try to do it this way. Oh, I missed my 9. I guess we didn't total that up. I'm going to pause and grab my calculator 1 second so I can do this, continue doing this how we were doing it. So let me pause this 1 second. Okay, this woman's good, but that is a little much to do mentally. So 3,825 and 1 cent plus 7,613 and 17 cents plus 12,000, that was a good one, 932 and 54 cents. That comes out to a total of, for the positives, 24,370. Oh, that's an ugly 7. 370, 72. That one looks better for a 7, but then we didn't do well in the 2. Now I have different signs, so I'm going to find the difference. So with my calculator showing 24,370 and 72 cents, I can just simply subtract $4,734.86, and I should end up with, I must have did one of my additions wrong. Oh, my one here was simply my last one. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find the total of my negatives again. 13,142 and 50 cents plus 6,783 and 36 cents plus, now I'm adding them because they're all negatives. I'm combining negatives to get a grand total of all of my losses. So my losses are going to be 24,660 and 72 cents. Now you can see my losses are larger than my profits. So I'm going to find the difference between those. I have this number on my calculator already. I'm going to subtract my profits, which were the smaller of the two numbers, finding the difference. Sevens are as ugly as the 2s. So I'm going to subtract 24,370 and 72 cents, and I should come up with 290. Now my 290, however, different signs, find the difference, but it's going to get a negative in front of it because the value here was a larger value. So I give it the sign of that larger one. So I ended up losing $290. So I'm still in the hole, $290, and have not made a profit on my business. Sorry for that mistake. I was just copying wrong from the book there, and I was using that one and that one instead of the totals.